Hey there, it's Clay with modernlove.life. In this video, we're going to be talking about 5 big secrets your ex hides from you if they actually like you. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are kind of bracing for collision, anticipating the worst case scenario, worrying that things aren't going to happen, looking for signs that things aren't going to turn out well. And I can definitely understand that, but if you're focusing too much on the negative, you may actually overlook positive things that could be happening in your relationship or with your ex. And so I did want to talk about some things that your ex might be, actually keeping from you if they actually do like you. So the first one is that, hey, they're nervous. I talk about this on pretty much all videos in some capacity or other on this channel, but your ex is a human being. We're all human beings, and we're all just doing our best to try to figure out life. And that includes making a lot of mistakes. That includes stepping into uncomfortable situations. That involves trying things, finding out what we like, finding out what we don't like. I think that when we're very small, when we're kids, teenagers, maybe even young adults, we tend to look at our parents or at other authority figures as, people that have it all figured out. They figured out the whole life thing. And one thing that you learn as you get older is that no one has it figured out. Even your parents, as flawed or imperfect as they might be, we're just trying to figure out life. And so that's the way that we really all are. We're all just confused and lost and trying to figure this out. And that is especially true when it comes to challenging, difficult situations such as breakups. Like we talked about in yesterday's video, your ex has a lot of mixed feelings about breaking up. And so the idea of being nervous should be easily understood. Your ex is nervous that they might be making the wrong choice. They're nervous that maybe you won't take them back. We'll get to more on that a little bit later. They're also nervous that maybe they're making a fool of themselves by breaking up with you and then still having feelings for you. They could be nervous about all sorts of things, but it's important to remember that they are nervous. Like I said yesterday, even though you may really like your ex and want to get back together with them, they're not just this flawless, perfect person who is just judging and saying like, hey, yes, let's be in a relationship. No, let's not be in a relationship. They're just trying to figure stuff out. And that's going to cause them to feel things like nervousness. Or number 2 here, which is they might feel confused. They might feel really confused about this whole breakup. People break up typically because something in the relationship isn't working. That is to say, they are moving away from some sort of pain that they are experiencing in their life. Typically, when people move away from pain, they don't necessarily have a solid vision of what they want to actually move towards, okay? And so, I think like a super easy to understand example of this is like, okay, let's say you and I were going to go on vacation somewhere, okay? Let's say we're living in Los Angeles, okay? And it's like, where are we going to go for vacation? And it's like, okay, well, I don't know, but we're definitely not going to go to Las Vegas. Okay, where are we going to go? Are we going to go to Sacramento? Or are we going to go to Paris? Because those are very different places. Are we going to go to Bangkok? Are we going to go to Sydney, Australia? Are we going to, just go to San Diego for the weekend? Like, what are we doing here, right? And so your ex could be very confused because, sure, they may have set out on this endeavor to move away from some sort of pain, but unless they actually have something very specific that they're moving towards, they're probably going to have a great deal of confusion. Just like if you have your bags packed and you're at the airport and you know you're going to go somewhere, but you don't know where, your ex is probably experiencing that same degree of confusion. Now, it's easy to just jump on some random flight and say like, oh, great, cool, I'm going to I don't know, Anchorage, Alaska or something. But maybe you're not equipped for that. There's a rebound relationship metaphor. Trust me, I'm working up to it, okay? Maybe they just somehow end up on some flight to Anchorage, Alaska, and it's like, oh, look at that. I only brought t-shirts and shorts and flip-flops. Okay, this is not going to work out. I'm not prepared for this. But they might convince themselves on the way that like, yeah, Anchorage, Alaska is the place to go. It's off the beaten path. There's fresh air, maybe. I've never been there, but I imagine there's probably lots of fresh air. But it might be a little bit colder than I hoped. But that's okay, because it's definitely not Los Angeles. It's definitely not Las Vegas, whatever the one we're moving away from is. We want to actually not just move away from something or not just end up in something and then talk ourselves into it, but we actually want to intentionally choose what we're going to move towards and move into. Like how probably most of us actually plan our vacations, which is to say, hey, I've always wanted to go to Rome. Okay, let's go to Rome. Okay, we're going to spend this many days there, this many weeks there, whatever. We're going to go see the Colosseum. We're going to go see the Vatican. We're going to go do this. We're going to go do that and all that stuff. And that's how I would recommend that you go about doing your relationships, but that is not how many people do their relationships, especially when coming out of a breakup. And so your ex is probably very, very confused, just as you would probably be very confused if you just fumbled your way into the airport and somehow landed on an airplane. I don't know if this is a very good metaphor because, it's 2021, pandemic, all that stuff. But I think you probably get the point. The next thing that your ex could be hiding from you if they actually like you is that they're also embarrassed. They are embarrassed that they broke up with you. They are embarrassed that they broke up with you and they still like you. They are embarrassed that they broke up with you and they still like you and they went through the whole dramatic process of going through a breakup, and now they're having to admit to themselves that maybe they were wrong, that things weren't that bad, and all of that. So they might try to play it cool. There is a lot of dating and relationship advice out there that is widely available to many people, such as your ex, that tells them, hey, you need to play it cool, okay? So they very well could be playing it cool. But they might be feeling embarrassed. We think that we need to have our lives figured out. We think that we should make it seem like we have our lives figured out, that we should, be these polished people and all of that. But that's just a setup for embarrassment and, insecurity and all sorts of things. Because none of us are these polished people. None of us are going to have it figured out. So why play that game to begin with? That's why I'm fairly transparent here on this channel. I don't talk too much about my personal life because I know that most people aren't listening to learn more about my personal life. I know that you're mostly just interested in your own relationship, so we talk about that. But, I do weave in certain stories when it's relevant about like my wife or my daughter or how we moved to a small town recently and all that stuff. I do that because I'm just being transparent. I'm not trying to play this game of being some sort of polished, perfect person. And I don't know, maybe that causes certain people to not want to follow me or whatever if you're looking for the polished person, but that's okay, because I don't want to work with people that want to work with the polished person because I'm not a polished person. We're going to fundamentally disappoint one another. And that's okay. And that's how I would recommend that you run your relationships in your life as well too. Because you don't want to pretend that you have it all together either, because, unless somehow you actually do have it all together in your life, in which case, great, awesome. If you're like the rest of us mortals, you probably don't have it all figured out. And so what you want to do is just be transparent about it. Just be open about it. There are a lot of things in my life that I'm still trying to figure out. There's a lot of things in my life that are, to be determined. And maybe we'll get into those some other point in time, but your ex is probably feeling this urge as well too. Either this sort of like subtle pressure from society to have it all figured out, or maybe some dating and relationship advice that says like, hey, you got to be the prize. You got to always seem like you got it together. You got to seem like you're, a 10, and that way they feel insecure because we all think that we're a 7 or something like that. And again, there's nothing wrong with that if you genuinely do have it all put together and you genuinely are a perfect 10 and all of that stuff. But chances are you're just trying to figure out your life, like most of us, and that is okay. The more transparent you can be about that, the more you're going to put your ex at ease, and you're going to be able to put them at ease in a way that causes them to get past their embarrassment, because they're going to be able to see themselves in you as an imperfect person, and that's going to help them feel better to themselves about being an imperfect person, which is going to cause them to feel less embarrassed, less confused, and less nervous, which are all the 3 things that we've talked about so far. The 4th big secret that your ex has, if they really like you, is that they really desperately want you to hit that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm on this video and on every video that I make. It does help us out with the YouTube algorithm, so please help us out with that. All kidding aside though, the 4th thing is that it's hard for them to admit that they're wrong. It's difficult for a lot of people to admit that they made a mistake when it came to the breakup. So many times people may feel held back because of pride. They may feel held back because they don't know how to admit that they're wrong. They don't know how to say, hey, I'm just trying to figure out my own life. I tried something out, it didn't work. Can we figure this out together? Again, showing up, being transparent, being vulnerable is going to help them with this. But additionally, one thing that can really help is to not phrase it as you're wrong. Not that you really have that overt conversation, but you don't want to sort of set up the perception that, you're wrong for breaking up with me. You're wrong for leaving this relationship. You're wrong for giving up. Because that's just going to reinforce this whole thing that you're not good enough, you don't have your life figured out. Instead, if you start with the presupposition that you're right, that kind of takes on the kind of, Aikido move. I don't know if you're familiar with Aikido, but it is a martial art that I was enrolled in when I was in like first grade, I think. For those of you who don't know, I had like really thick Coke bottle, like crazy thick. They're probably like half an inch thick glasses. And as the result of which I was bullied a little bit in school. And so my mom enrolled me in Aikido. And basically, I'll give you the short version of it, but it's a martial art where you can't actually go out of your way to attack someone or inflict harm upon them. But instead, you have to wait for them to try to attack you, and then you can kind of rechannel and redirect their attack into, flipping them or something like that, right? And so that's kind of what you're doing. Your ex is expressing some sort of concern about why the relationship doesn't work, why it's not gonna work, why the two of you can't get back together or something like that. And instead of trying to prove them wrong, which implies, hey, you're wrong, you're losing face, you should be embarrassed or something like that. Instead, you just simply start with the presupposition of you're right. Yeah, you're right. You absolutely should have broken up with me because we were having a really tough time. I can see that now, and I've done some things to grow, but you are absolutely right to do that. And suddenly you're kind of taking that energy, sort of refocusing it and taking on that Aikido stance. That's something we talk about in Effortless Connection, by the way, the course Effortless Connection. The fifth secret your ex may hide from you if they actually like you is that they're worried that you won't take them back. I know that this may sound silly because, you want to get back together with them, and you've probably made it well known in some capacity or other that you want to get back together with them, but they're worried that you won't take them back. If they like you, if they're realizing that they made some sort of mistake, if they feel like they've painted themselves into a corner in some way, they might be afraid that you wouldn't take them back. They might think poorly of themselves for, leaving a great relationship. And they might think like, well, I must be some sort of loser. Who would you be to take me back? Like, why would you do that? I like you. You're this great person. You're the best relationship I've ever had. Why would you take me back when I sabotage this whole thing? Maybe I'm not worthy of love. Maybe I'm not worthy of this or that. Your ex, again, they're not this perfect person. They may have self-esteem issues. They may have self-doubts and all of that. And they may be very worried that you won't take them back. And so that's why we want to take things slow. We want to build that emotional connection. We want to build that same team aspect that we've talked about on many of our videos in the past. We want to really work with them and demonstrate to them that we can do this together. That it's not just them against the world, but that we're actually a partner, not just in a romantic sense, but a partner in that we have this sort of shared vision that we're moving towards. And that is going to allow the two of you to, get closer, to take this one step at a time, and for the two of you to actually have this beautiful experience of getting back together as a collaborative process rather than you begging for them to take you back or them begging for you to take them back or all that stuff. There's all these other people on YouTube and stuff that talk about, get your ex to crawl over broken shards of glass to get back together with you. And again, I make jokes about it all the time, but if your ex is crawling over broken shards of glass in order to be back together with you, that means that they don't believe that you're going to take them back. And that means that this is not a collaborative process for them. It's actually something that's a little bit embarrassing for them. It's a little bit humiliating for them to a certain degree. I'm sure you'd be very excited to take them back and you'd love that experience and all that. But from their point of view, they're going to be hesitant to actually make that move if they did like you, because they would think that you don't even want to be with them, and that this is somehow sort of them capitulating and coming at you from a place of weakness. And I can understand that, like, oh, okay, if they actually were to beg and plead and all that, it means that they really want to get back together with me. But it also is symptomatic of the fact that they must feel incredibly alone in this process. And that is not a great setup for a good relationship. Because, again, we've talked about this many times in the past, but you want to be on the same team with one another, okay? And if they feel like they're in this alone, if they feel like they're crawling back, begging and pleading, they're probably feeling alone. They probably don't feel like the two of you are on the same team. So anyway, yeah, if that is something that you want help with, getting back together with your ex, we haven't talked about this in a while, but please make sure that you're on our email newsletter over at modernlove.life/newsletter. Okay, a very complicated URL, but modernlove.life/newsletter. It's totally free to sign up. We give you this nice little report that goes through a couple common myths and misconceptions about breakups and getting back together, such as the no contact rule and all sorts of other things that you may be hearing from other people. But yeah, check it out. A lot of people say it's very helpful for them. We send you lots of resources, tips, advice, and strategies to help you save your relationship. And again, it's totally free. All you have to do is go to modernlove.life/newsletter and sign up. Anyway, thanks so much. Please take care, and I'll talk to you next time.